and welcome along to the Glenorchy Council, the Glenorchy City Council meeting tonight, the 25th of May 2020. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as original, traditional and continuing custodian of the land that we're gathering on tonight, to pay my respect to the elders past, present and emerging. In this strange COVID-19 world, we are again meeting online, and I have my aldermen present in their virtual homes online with us tonight, as well as our staff and directors. And we'll go around the table just to confirm the attendance today. If Alderman could please indicate that they're attending. Alderman Bull.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Alderman Ryan.
Yes, I'm here.
Alderman Donsby.
Thank you, I'm pleased to be here.
Alderman King.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Yes, I'm here.
Mayor Johnson's here as well. Alderman Richardson.
I'm here.
Alderman Fraser.
Yeah, I'm here.
Alderman Carlton.
Yes, I'm here.
And Alderman Sims.
Here.
Thank you. And of course, we have our General Manager, Tony McMullen, and our directors and senior managers with us as well tonight online. So that's everyone in attendance today. We will move on then to the agenda. So council item number 1, apologies, there are none. Item 2 is confirmation of minutes for open council meeting. We have a number of here to approve, one from the 30th of March 2020, one from the 27th of April 2020, and our special council meeting on the 18th of May 2020. Do I have someone to move these minutes, please?
Alderman Richardson, I'm happy to move.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Someone to second, please.
Deputy Mayor.
Sims.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any discussion of those minutes? No discussion. I'll put the motion. I'll go around the table and ask you to cast your vote for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnson is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
Thank you. The motion is carried unanimously. Move on to item 3, which is announcements by the chair. Again, I'd like to congratulate our members of our community for doing such a great job at the moment with the COVID-19 restrictions, and by complying with them, we're helping to keep our community safe. Please keep up the good work and make sure that we can keep everyone safe and we can have fantastic outcomes. So congratulations to everyone there. Item 4 is pecuniary interest notifications. Do I have any members of the council or staff with a pecuniary interest tonight? So I understand General Manager Tony McMullen, you'd like to declare an interest?
That's correct, Mayor. I'd like to declare an interest in item 21, General Manager position.
Thank you, General Manager. We'll note that down. Any further declarations of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest? No? Move on to item 5, response to previous public questions taken on notice. We have received some from the Australian Services Union. They are contained in the council agenda and a response also provided there. They are quite lengthy, so I won't read them out, but I do encourage you to go online and have a look at the questions and answers there. Item 6 is public question time. Normally we would have members of the public gallery present with us here at the council chambers, and they would be able to ask questions at this time. Unfortunately, due to the restrictions for COVID-19, we are meeting virtually online at the moment, and so that's not possible to have members of the public interacting during this council meeting. However, we do invite members of the public to ask questions and email them through. We have received one today from Mr. James Bryan of Montrose Road. His question is regarding the planning application for 671 Main Road, Berrydale, and 14810 Alcorso Drive, including the Berrydale Foreshore Reserve Caravan Park site. There was a legally binding resource management and the Planning Appeals Tribunal, RMPAT, decision on December 2016, affirming the additional information relating to spray drift and odour modelling related to the sewage works, which are provided under section 54 of LUPA Act. This is required in order to comply with relevant standards before Glenorchy Planning Authority can approve Manus development. The question from Mr. Bryan is, has the required compliance with the LUPA Act and RMPAT directions been addressed by MONA, as they previously would not comply with this request? The relevant clause 9.7.2 applies. Development for sensitive use with potential to cause environmental harm. This should be disclosed in open council. Officer's response has been provided and it is as follows. All further information requested to enable assessment for this application, including in relation to spray drip and odour modelling, will need to be provided before the development application proceeds to public exhibition and assessment. Following public exhibition and assessment, the application will be considered by the Glenorchy Planning Authority in an open meeting. That's the only public question we've received via email to date. General Manager, do we have item 7, petitions and deputations, any of them?
No, Mayor.
Thank you, General Manager. We move then on to item 8, announcements by the Mayor. Do I have someone to move this item, please?
Alderman Bull.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Seconded?
Alderman Ryan.
Alderman Ryan. Thank you, Alderman Ryan. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
You've been a quiet girl this month. But no, I'll just open it. I will recommend it for approval, and I'll open it to the floor.
Thank you very much, Alderman Bull. I'll go around the table and ask if anyone wishes to speak to the motion. Alderman Ryan, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, nothing further, thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby.
Yes, Mayor, I just wonder if we could have some information on your meeting on the 8th of May with the Glenorchy Historical Society.
Oh, yes, certainly. So I had a meeting virtually online with the Glenorchy Historical Society in relation to a number of items, particular in relation to the works that are being done at the CBD at the moment and updating them on the work that's currently outside St Matthew's Church. I also spoke to them in regards to a number of current historical and heritage projects that community members are talking about at the moment. In particular, I note that there's a Facebook group called Windermere and Claremont History Facebook group, I believe, and they're very active and interested in the history of that. I also spoke to them in regards to the number of queries we've had about family history matters, property history matters, and talked to them about that as well as other applications that are coming before us. So I had a good chance to catch up with them and to seek their feedback, and also to put them in touch with a number of people who have been making inquiries about historical matters within the city.
That's fantastic. I endorse your comments too about the Windermere group. The history that they've been forward is absolutely enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman King.
No, good, thanks, Mayor. Just getting the button to work.
Thank you, Alderman King. Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Nothing, thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Richardson.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Alderman Fraser.
No, all good, thanks.
Alderman Carlton.
Nothing further, thank you.
And Alderman Sims.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go back to the mover then, Alderman Bull, to close debate.
I'll just support the recommendation. I have nothing else to say, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
The motion is carried unanimously. We move then on to the next item, which is item 9, KG Football Soccer Facility Master Plan. Do I have someone to move this item, please?
Move, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Seconded.
Alderman Bull.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Look, I'm happy to support the recommendation in this report, which is that we, the council, endorse option and continue to negotiate with the Australian and Tasmanian government, and also I note and the other key stakeholders of associated with the project on the redevelopment of KG5 football soccer facility. And I note the work that's gone into preparing the master plan also for this site. We've received, council's been fortunate to receive 3 different sources of funding in recent times for soccer in our northern suburbs, and it was important that we considered the best use of this funding for the people of Glenorchy, and it was important that we look at the best use of the KG5 facility going forward too. So that's been done through that master plan, and that's a very comprehensive document. I encourage people who are interested in our sport and recreation facilities in our community to have a read of that. So that brings together the needs of the different stakeholders and of our community, and identifies the best use of the 3 funding sources in line with the intended purpose of each of those grant programs that the funding came from. So we have a total of $14.3 million to spend, and we'll be $12.8 million of that was federal government funding originally granted for the redevelopment of North Chigwell Oval, and there's been agreement reached between the key stakeholders that funding be split 70-30%, for 30% of that to go to the KG5 football facility. We've also got $1 million in community development grant funding and $500,000 in levelling the playing field funding. And I'm really satisfied with the outcome of the negotiations. I know it's been there's been some ongoing and lengthy discussions between council officers, the Mayor, Andrew Wilkie, who was pivotal in securing the federal government funding, Football Federation Tasmania, and the Glenorchy Knights, and also the Metro Football Club to rescope these projects and finalise the funding agreements. So option 2 will see the demolition of the existing Football Tasmania building at the KG5 site, rehabilitation of the site, construction of new amenities and administration buildings, and the installation of lights and poles and a new synthetic surface, as the current surface has reached the end of its playing life, upgrades to change rooms and toilets to provide female-specific facilities, club rooms and medical rooms and office space. So, as I say, I'm happy to support the recommendation, but I do have a couple of questions before I open up to the floor, if I may please, Mayor, and I did provide those earlier today.
Certainly, Deputy Mayor. I understand that we have our Director of Construction and Works, Ted Ross, available, and also our Manager of Property, Environment and Waste, Alex, as well. Do you want to go through those questions, Deputy?
Yeah, sure, thank you. So I'll ask them all as one, so it's easier to answer. So Metro Football Club are the key stakeholders for the North Chigwell project, so I just wanted to confirm that that's correct, and to confirm that they have been consulted on the splitting of the funding. And that they are satisfied with the 70-30 split as a key stakeholder for that North Chigwell Oval project. And also hear an update on the progress towards the North Chigwell project and what are the next steps in this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Director Ross and Manager Alex.
Through you, Mayor, it's Alex Wood, Manager of Property, Environment and Waste. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So the Metro Football Club, they have been consulted, so an engagement plan for the North Chigwell Community Facility has yet to be developed. It will include Football Tasmania as the initial requesters of the grant, along with Metro as the anchor club for the facility. We will also need to undertake significant engagement with the Chigwell community as part of developing the project. So at this stage, the grant deed hasn't been finalised, so we're just waiting for that to come back through the Australian government. But conversations have been ongoing with Metro and Football Tas regarding the status of the project, and they have been consulted originally as part of the split, and that was agreed to by the clubs and Football Tasmania, and we've had regular ongoing contact and communication with the club. As far as the progress towards North Chigwell, so Council's obviously, as I said, are waiting for the Australian government to come back to Council to finalise the grant deed. Once the grant deed has been signed, then we'll be able to commence work on the project. So the next step is to undertake further design work and engagement with the community and the key stakeholders. And so what would happen then is that we would need to develop a business case, which would then return to Council. And we'd expect this process to take 6 to 12 months, but once we get the go-ahead from the Australian government, we'd be keen to move forward.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that.
Anything further, Deputy Mayor?
Not at this point, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We'll go around the table and ask who would like to speak to the motion. Alderman Bull.
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Alderman Ryan.
Thanks, I have nothing to add.
Thank you, Alderman Ryan. Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. I believe that the Deputy Mayor's questions have answered my concerns as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman King.
No, that's fine. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman King. Alderman Richardson.
No, I'm happy to endorse option 2. A new fit for purpose building is better than trying to adapt an older building to fit with current day requirements, and it makes good business sense to bring all stakeholders together to get the most out of the funding that's available. So I'm happy to support that.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Alderman Fraser.
No, nothing further. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things from me. I'm broadly supportive of option 2 and very happy to see the master planning process and what's been involved. I have noted in the report about in the risk management section on page 16 and also in the financial part of the report that we are looking at an increase in our operating costs associated with this particular facility. So currently it's around $130,000 a year, and we're looking at actually increasing to $430,000 worth of operational expenditure each year. But I do note as a risk mitigation that the management and operational plans will be finalised and actually brought back to council, so we can actually get a better understanding of that increased costs. What are the ways that we're looking to recoup some of those additional expenses that naturally will be incurred with any sort of infrastructure project. So it's very exciting. I'm really pleased to see the option. I am a little bit concerned about the increase in costs, and I'm really looking forward to the next time we have a look at this report to see about the ways that we're actually going to reduce that that expenditure. And I can see in the report it's been part of the master planning process to ensure that we take every measure to reduce the operating costs or make the building run as efficiently as possible.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Sims.
Yes, I'd just like to speak to the motion and also ask a question through you, Mayor. The Deputy covered most of my queries quite well, and thank you, Alex, our officer, for the answers. Appreciate that. And a lot of the information is in the attachments too, which I understand is a lot to read for our community members in these busy times, so I appreciate that. But for clarifications, I certainly urge them to jump online and always flick through those in case anything stands out to pinpoint for yourselves. But for the purpose of the public gallery, just a question to either the GM, Mayor or Council officers. Can we just briefly outline who's already been consulted for the purpose of this and or who's had key input? Because the negotiations is different to consultation, and I'm just thinking about, I know we've looked at the Chigwell local clubs, but what about the local clubs down at KGV and things like YMCA? Because I'm at this stage, I like option 2, and I'm happy to endorse that recommendation with the info provided on the table, but I am a bit concerned about that and the cost as well. So could we just maybe have some inclination to those key stakeholders that have been consulted down, the local ones down that way?
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Perhaps just correct me if I'm incorrect, Alex, in regards to the consultations are listed on page 15 of the agenda, and it includes Director of Infrastructure Works, Manager of Property, Australian Government Department Representative, State Government Department of Community Sport and Rec, Football Federation Tasmania, YMCA, Andrew Wilkie MP, Glenorchy Knights, which is a local sporting club at KG5 itself, Claremont Metro Football Club, which again runs the North Chigwell site, the Chair of the Health and Communities Advisory Committee, which is in this case Deputy Mayor Thomas, myself, the Executive Leadership and Alderman as well. Does that answer your question, Alderman Sims, about who would be consulted or who has been consulted and will continue to be consulted? Yeah.
Thank you. That is pretty much it, but that kind of leads me into another question of what about the local football clubs and the smaller sporting clubs around there as well?
So this is a project for soccer, so certainly the 2 soccer clubs that are the local ones have been consulted. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm also wondering about the surrounding clubs that it will impact as well, the local one.
Sorry.
Yes, I was also just wondering about the other surrounding local ones that it will impact.
Certainly, perhaps Alex, are you able to talk to that issue in question, please?
Sure, through you, Mayor. Alderman Sim, so we've contacted, we held a workshop with local sporting clubs on trying to get a consistent approach in our design to sporting facilities, and trying to work through and also getting clubs to understand the issues that council face, and I guess some of the feedback that a lot of local clubs would want. Whilst we haven't specifically consulted on this particular design, because we've got to this point at the moment, as part of the planning process and future consultation, we would intend to do some further consultation with some of those clubs, and we'd be encouraging Football Tas as being a stakeholder to speak with the relevant other clubs that would utilise the facility as well moving forward.
Okay, all right. And is there other clubs other than football as well we'd need to think about?
So through you, Mayor, at this stage, the facility itself is solely for football, being soccer. So it doesn't get utilised by any other sport. However, part of our intention would be is that the design could be utilised by other sports, being the building itself, and the grounds potentially being utilised. But at this stage, nothing further with the consultation. But the next step in the process would be to do some broader consultation.
Great, thank you. That answers the question. Thanks, Alex.
Any further, Alderman Sims?
Not at this stage, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. I'll go back to the mover then, Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support the recommendation. As I said, I think they're all valid points that have been raised by my fellow aldermen who have spoken to the motion. Consultation with the surrounding clubs, including the Glenorchy Football Club, as in AFL Club, and the Glenorchy Cricket Club is important as well through this process, as is, as I voiced in the workshop, a broader master plan for the KG5 precinct, and most definitely all of the organisations within that precinct, including the Transport Museum, as well as the clubs we've mentioned, and the YMCA will need to be part of that process, and I know that remains firmly on this council's agenda. So with that in mind, as we've said, this is specifically a football project and a football facility master plan, because that is the purpose of the funding that we've received from the 3 different funding sources, and the master plan was really, the intent of the master plan was to achieve best use of those 3 sources of funding for football in the northern suburbs. Football is in soccer in the northern suburbs. So I'm happy to support the recommendation and look forward to, as Alderman Carlton said, seeing that that plan come back for how we will manage costs ongoing, as that is also something that this council is really committed to doing, is to making sure we have fair and reasonable lease agreements in place with our community sporting clubs that see us and through our ratepayers supporting sport and recreation in our community, but also setting up council's long-term financial management plan and our asset renewal and management plan to be sustainable going forward at the same time. So all important considerations. So again, thank the officers for the work in getting to this point with this project. I know there's been some ongoing negotiations and sometimes some difficult conversations to reach this point, and I appreciate the cooperation of all of the stakeholders involved as well, and look forward to a new Butte facility.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll put the motion, then I'll go around the table and ask Alderman to indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunphy.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
The motion is carried unanimously. We then move on to item 10, Paths, Tracks and Trails report. Do I have an alderman to move this item for me, please?
Alderman Richardson.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Someone to second, please.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Alderman Richardson, would you like to speak to the motion, please?
No, I don't think I've got anything further to add. I'm happy to receive the report and officer's recommendations in attachment 1 and note the proposed action.
Thank you very much. I will go around the table then and ask if any other alderman would like to speak to the motion. Alderman Bull.
No, I'm fine, thank you. Happy with it.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Alderman Ryan.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm encouraged by the themes identified by the research and the community consultation. The Derwent foreshore is one of our community's greatest assets, but it has never been, the sustainable engagement's never been fully realised, and maybe one of the reasons is because of the separation of a big chunk of the foreshore from the main residential and commercial precincts by the Brooker Highway, and this has been identified. And so it's encouraging that some of the focus is on the issue of accessibility across the Brooker. I'm also pleased to see that some of the focus is on creation of pathways, cycleways and recreational tracks. More engagement with the foreshore means more opportunities to promote healthy living, resulting in a more vibrant and healthy community. So I'm happy to support the motion.
Thank you very much, Alderman Ryan. Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. Yes, I just find reading the report, it just fascinates me how much it interacts and engages with so much of our community that you just think it's about tracks and trails, and it is so much more. This report has comprehensively dealt with those, as Alderman Ryan has just orated as well. And obviously the different themes I think will resonate well through that report, and I'll be happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Dunsby. We move on to Alderman King.
No, that's good, thanks, Mayor. But just a question, if I may. With this system, if we need to leave our position for a moment or two, how do you know we've left it? Aren't you sitting there sort of trying to get hold of us? What do we do?
If you could put your hand up, I should be able to say that you put your hand up, and then I will be able to indicate whether you've gone or not. So if you can let me know, I'll come to you. But that's the reason why I do go around the council table to ask if everyone wants to speak and if everyone would like to vote, so that we make sure that we've got everybody participating in the meeting.
Yeah, all I was getting is if we disappeared for a moment, we know when we've disappeared in a council meeting. I just wasn't sure how you'd know here without the fact we weren't talking to you.
It is one of the challenges that this COVID-19 will present with virtual meetings, but if you can raise your hand and just perhaps indicate or unmute yourself and just say, look, I'm leaving for a minute, and then when you come back on, that'd be great.
That's good. If you're happy with that, that's fine. Thanks.
So, Alderman King, anything you would like to add to the motion?
No, I'm good, thank you.
No. Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I would like to speak to the motion. I echo the sentiments of Alderman Ryan and Alderman Dunsby. I think this report is indeed fascinating, and it's so good that we have this information collated. One of the biggest complaints that I hear is that, our footpaths are terrible in this area, or, what's our plan for improving our pathways and connecting up spaces in our CBD, and especially from our CBD to our river. So I think it's great that we had such a wonderful response to our survey that we conducted back in September last year. We used the innovative social pinpoint tool to enable our community to identify missing links and make comments on needs for improvement in our network of footpaths, tracks and trails around our municipality. Paths, tracks and trails keep us safe, healthy, active and connected, and it's really important that they are accessible and inclusive, and we heard that loud and clear from the feedback that our community provided through the survey. And 381 responses is a really good response to the social pinpoint, as well as 144 questionnaires. So it's really great to hear that our community were interested in having their say. The future Glenorchy Paths, Tracks and Trails report as well as outlining the feedback, spells out Council's vision and recommended projects, and with the 7 main themes being bringing the river to the city, improving the intercity cycleway, more paths and tracks for recreation, safer footpaths, infrastructure for all abilities, safer road environment for pedestrians, cyclists and wheelchairs and prams, and noting that ongoing further engagement is required. So I'm really pleased to see that one of the recommendations and the next steps at the conclusion of the report is in fact that we keep the survey and the social pinpoint tool live and ongoing for our ratepayers and residents, make it easy for them to provide us with continuous and ongoing feedback on how we can improve our network of footpaths, tracks and trails. I think that's a great idea. One of the other next steps is developing a methodology for prioritising projects, and this is really important as well because obviously there's lots of different ideas and projects, so it's really important that we have a method to prioritise and also develop some business cases for some larger projects. I think I said we have 466 kilometres of footpath in our network. It's a lot of footpath, and footpaths are not cheap to maintain or improve. 20% of our footpaths are in very poor condition, so we do have some work to do, and it's great to have a plan in place to do this. So I'm very happy to support the recommendation that we note the report and support the ongoing work that will be undertaken as a result of it.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Alderman Fraser, would you like to speak to the motion?
Oh, did you say Fraser?
Yes, Alderman Fraser, sorry, yes.
Did we skip someone?
Myself and the mover, Alderman Richardson. So we jumped to get
Oh,
you,
sorry,
Alderman
okay.
Fraser. That's all right.
No, happy to receive a note, thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor. Just really echoing the comments of our previous alderman who've already spoken, and just to add that this is a really solid piece of work, and I'm really confident about the role that this is going to play in future decision making, and also to get the best out of any projects that we might be able to take advantage of or that might come the way of council. And I guess a specific example of that is in the theme of bringing the river to the city, there's some work proposed, I think, alongside the Barossa Creek walkway, which happens to run alongside what we've just talked about in the previous agenda item, which is Football Federation Tasmania and the soccer there. So we have 2 projects that are basically going to be side by side, and the Tracks and Trails and Path strategy, I think, will help guide and get the best value out of the funding and being able to provide benefits to both of those projects. So that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing how we might be able to achieve some of the actions and strategies in the Path, Tracks and Trails, as well as the benefit for the Football Federation and the Glenorchy Knights.
Thank you very much, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Sims, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I'd just like to commend our officers on the development of the report and the strategy. Also, I suppose they're developing a pathway, no pun intended, for us moving forward in a more informed way around this. After reading the report and also taking a stroll with the director myself, we did look at the Barossa Street and the little nooks and crannies around that area and how we can actually make safe transitions. The much needed, very much needed aspect while we're activating the spaces over the road. And a lot of that is the community feedback we receive as aldermen around those physical spaces of families getting around the city, and which is one of those hierarchy of needs that's really important and at the forefront. And it's something that you can see a lot and feel a lot when you have issues with it. And I'm very comfortable that it aligns with our future plans and activation of the space. And also echo other aldermen, we did need to make it accessible. And we need some really good feedback mechanisms for that and make sure that we're going off evidence-based best practice as well. But I feel this will support the outcomes that we're looking for, and it's a good step in the right direction for success in that way. So thank you, officers, for all the hard work.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. We'll go back to the mover, Alderman Richardson.
Thank you. No, I welcome any upgrades to our tracks and trails in our city. It's wonderful to see them utilised. I just have one query, and I'm just want to take this opportunity to ask, because I received some feedback from a couple of community people that use Montrose Bay foreshore, and they would love to see some lights along the tracks there so they can jog after dark, especially in winter, when it's dark at 5:30. So I just if I could just ask, are there any provision for lighting across in the plan to do that?
I might throw that question over to the Director of Infrastructure Works or the Manager of Property.
Thank you, Mayor. Ted Ross, Director of Infrastructure and Works. There's no planned lighting upgrade to the paths along Montrose. There will be some lighting as part of the upgrade to the Montrose play space. But I think that's great feedback, and we'll certainly take it on board. That's the kind of feedback that we'd like as part of the social pinpoint. So getting people who have those sorts of comments and getting those comments onto social pinpoint will help us to prioritise and those types of works. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Anything further, Alderman Richardson?
Thank you very much. Nothing further to add.
Thank you. I'll put the motion, then I'll go around the table again for for and against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
That motion is carried unanimously. We move on to item 11, 2020-21 fees and charges for food, business and public health risk activities. Do I have someone to move this recommendation, please?
Move, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Someone to second, please.
Alderman Richardson.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is fairly straightforward. The report notes, so we are endorsing the fees and charges for food, business and public health risk activities for 2020-21 as per the fee schedule set out in the report, which will see a 2.5% increase for public health risk activities, including piercing, tattooing and acupuncture, in line with Council's long-term financial management plan. And fees not staying the same for food business activities for 2020-21. We had a new classification structure in 2019-20, which meant most food businesses were subject to fees increases greater than what would normally apply. Therefore, the recommendation before us is that the fees stay the same in 2021 as they were in 1920, and I'm satisfied with this. I do also note that it is the intention of the state government to issue a notice under the COVID-19 Emergency Act to extend the current registration renewal date by 6 months, which would see council issue renewals for these fees in December rather than in June, and that the fees will be levied pro rata, so for 6 months instead of for 12. To give some relief to those businesses. So I'm satisfied with the proposed recommendations, but I do have a couple of questions, if I may, please, Mayor.
Certainly, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So, sorry, I'm just waiting for my third screen to load so I can remember what my questions were. One of them was, will the new class, so keeping the fees the same for food businesses, will that have an impact on our long-term financial management plan, or was that always intended in our long-term financial management plan? And were the fees, are the fees typically received in the financial year prior to when they apply? So, for example, did we receive the 2019-20 registration in the 2018-19 financial year? That's my first question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Perhaps the Director of Strategy and Development or the Manager of Development would like to answer that question.
Director of Strategy and Development, I'll throw to the Manager Development on these questions. Paul?
Through you, Mayor. Paul Garnsey, the Manager of Development. Thank you, Alderman Thomas, for your questions. So I can say that although the public health risk activity fees have increased by 2.5%, as you've noted, the food business fees we've asked to remain the same, so no increase. Now, the impact of that indexation on the long-term financial plan is $3,000 per annum. In relation to the 2019-20 fees, yes, they were received in 2018-19. So the invoices for food businesses renewals are normally issued in May, June of the previous year, and the revenue is recorded at that time for that financial year. The impact on the budget for the state government's notice under the COVID-19 Act, I think I've got there in the report is about $65,000. That is revenue that we will just forego. And in relation to your final question, we don't need a particular recommendation for the ministerial notice. That is something that the Minister has the ability to apply anyway, and what will essentially happen is we'll lose our ability to issue a renewal at this point in time, and if we can't do that, we can't collect any revenue as part of that either. So essentially what we will do is have 2 renewal processes next year, one for 6 months, and then one in June for the following 12 months.
Right. Thank you. That answers my question. And yeah, I guess good to know we don't need a recommendation in relation to it, but I think important to note that it will result in around $65,000 in foregone revenue for council in the financial year 2021. I think it's about 60,000 in food registrations and around must be 2,000 to 4,000 in public health risk activities. So thank you. I think that's worth noting.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Anything further?
No, thank you, Mayor.
No, I'll go around the table and ask Alderman would like to speak to the motion. Alderman Bull.
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Ryan.
No, I have nothing, thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Dunsby.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Alderman Key.
No, thank you, Mayor, that's fine.
Alderman Richardson.
Oh, one question, if I may.
Certainly, Alderman Richardson.
I note in the report that fees are on the high end of the spectrum regarding fees and charges levied in relation to businesses, and we don't cover our costs. I think it would be a worthwhile exercise knowing if other councils cover their administration costs to give us an understanding of whether our systems are efficient.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Perhaps Manager Garnsey, would you have to answer that, or perhaps the Director? Do we have an indication?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Look, I don't at this time, but we can certainly find out for you. I think from the previous work that we've done, those fees cover about half the cost of actually administering the public health in the municipality. I'm not sure. Well, I couldn't say what proportion that cost or those fees actually cover in expenses for other councils, but we can attempt to find out for you.
Thank you very much. Anything further, Alderman Richardson?
Nothing further.
Thank you. Alderman Fraser.
Just a question about the new fee.
Yes.
Do any of our neighbouring councils charge this application fee for a new food business?
Director or the Manager?
Through you, Mayor. Look, that I
tell you, but I can certainly take that on notice. Essentially, I guess there are swings and roundabouts with that fee. Firstly, it aligns with how we apply other fees, other application fees across development. So before we undertake any work, that we take a fee up front. So currently we are not doing that. And as a result, from time to time that we do undertake some assessments for which we don't actually get a payment for. The other thing that does too is, I guess it provides there are swings and roundabouts with that. So some food businesses, they'll get their registrations for the year. Some won't have to pay the higher fees, and some will pay in fact, some won't have to pay a higher fee. The businesses that pay the $300 will be paying a fair fee for the assessment that happens up front anyway. So I guess it's safeguarding council against doing work for which we don't recover fees at the moment. I would expect other municipalities would charge some sort of fee for that process, but I couldn't tell you what they were at this point in time.
Anything further, Alderman Fraser?
I'd just make the point that it'd be interesting to compare the costs of opening up a new food business in Glenorchy in comparison to Hobart, in comparison to Clarence, Launceston, etc., just to see whether we're on par or not as far as what it costs someone to set a business up, which is obviously already a fairly risky venture.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. We'll take that one on notice and get that information to you as soon as possible. Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had two quick questions, a little bit along the line of Alderman Richardson and Alderman Fraser's. The first one is about the new fee, and it's a bit of a clarification question. So I take it what we're asking in that $300 fee is to help cover the cost of the actual work that council does. But I take it from what's written in the report that we don't then charge them the registration fee on top of that. So we only charge them the $300, and then the fee will get charged in the next cycle. Is that right?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Yeah, Alderman Carlton, that's correct. Yes, so they pay that for the initial assessment, and then they will pay the applicable risk classification renewal when it's due next.
Okay, so it might be that they actually just get charged the $300 for their first year.
That's correct.
Okay, excellent. And just there's a comment in here in the report where it talks about the inspection fees, and it says here in Glenorchy inspection fees are covered in the registration fees, and we're not intending to charge those separately. We don't charge them separately. Are those fees, is it commonplace in other councils for inspection fees to be charged separate to registration fees?
Through you, Mayor. No, look, my understanding is that I think the way the legislation is drafted, councils only have the ability to charge a one-up registration fee, which might cover all of the costs associated with, I guess, keeping that business registered throughout the year. So I think it'd be commonplace that all of the neighbouring councils would cover their costs in that one registration fee.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further, Alderman Carlton?
No, nothing further.
Thank you. Alderman Sims.
Yeah, I'd just like to speak to the motion and also ask a question at the end. I know just in relation to the subject that's been raised last around comparing us to other councils, just from personal experience and working at other councils and also running childcare centres around the state and having to get them all registered as a food business so they can provide food, I actually found that they're all very different, and it's very common for anyone going through that process, no matter what, whether you're a food business or a school or something like that that needs that provision, that they're all quite different. And from what I know from working at different councils now, several different ones, and liaising with personnel, is that they're still quite different as well. So, and they're not covering costs, most of them. So that is something that is a bit of a common problem for people that are trying to run businesses around the state and find a common approach. And I find a lot of the feedback lines up with planning and development and having those different types of approaches for councils. So that is more of a holistic concern, I think, that we all need to look at as councils and aligning a bit better and working together better on that. But just in relation to ours, I know in the past we've questioned our council staff, and it might have even been quite early last year in workshops around digging up things like dog registrations, pet registrations, and comparing the other councils and the costs versus whether we're actually covering our own costs, service delivery and things like that. And I do remember asking council officers, I'm not sure what happened afterwards, sorry, I'd have to go through notes, but looking at that across all of our services to make sure we are working towards at least covering those costs, not necessarily doing it straight away, but measuring and balancing our community needs and what's fair and warranted to slowly meet that need to be covering costs. And I think that's something that's well worthy across all our service deliveries that come with fees and charges, that the council officers are looking at other councils and how it's working and what's evidence-based best practice for us to move forward in that space. But just on another note, we had the recommendation report and rationale provided to us via a workshop, and it was widely agreed upon then. And I appreciate the adherence to the ministerial notice or directives, how we like to see it. And that brings that flexibility of the next 6 months, which I think is very warranted in this current climate for our environment and community. So I will be supporting the motion at this point. I am a bit worried about our bottom line due to the impact, but understand that, you know, weighed up against where we're at with supporting this side of things, it is important that we take careful steps. So thank you. And the question really is, can we move forward as a council, looking at other councils and comparing and getting a bit more data around that type of thing?
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Manager Garnsey.
Through you, Mayor. Absolutely. We can attempt to solicit some information from other councils. I can't say how readily they would part with that information. I'll also say that yeah, it can be quite a complex thing to actually work out what the true cost is for providing a service. So I'm not sure whether some other councils have already done that work, and if they haven't, it's quite a large amount of work to actually undertake. So I'm not sure how freely the information would be available, but we can attempt to draw some comparisons with our neighbours for you.
Yeah, and I understand it is a difficult space holistically, but it isn't actually that difficult because you just jump online, and if you're a food business applying, you get notified of all those charges. Quite often they're online to find. When I was working with the childcare centres, I could find all of that quite easily accessible. And I think, you know, just to compare those types of things and weigh it up isn't a whole lot of work that isn't needlessly done. I think it'd be really important that we do look at those things, and even if it's not in complete, utter detail, we are at least weighing some of those considerations up in an informed way. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Go back to the mover, Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. It sounds like most of my fellow aldermen are supportive of the recommendations for our 2020-21 fees and charges, food business and public health risk activities, with a desire for a bit of comparison information to see how we compare to other councils, some of which was provided in the report for city councils. So I am happy to move forward with the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I'll go around the table and ask Alderman to indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan. Alderman Ryan.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King,
4.
Deputy Mayor Thomas,
4.
Mayor Johnston is 4. Alderman Richardson,
4.
Alderman Fraser,
4.
Alderman Carlton,
4.
and Alderman Sims.
4.
The motion is carried unanimously. We move on to item 12, to propose waste management fees and charges 2020-21 financial year. Can I have an alderman to move the recommendation, please?
Alderman Richardson.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Someone to second, please.
Alderman Fraser.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Alderman Richardson.
All right. No one likes to increase fees, but I'm saying that the increases proposed in this report are in tune with the waste management strategy and long-term financial plan and designed to cover associated costs. I just wish to highlight that as a result of the Council's COVID-19 relief package, Glenorchy residents will not pay any more for services than they did this year, next year. It's good that the landfill disposal charges are kept at 2.5% and with some not increasing at all. And I am delighted to see the continuation of the free waste disposal offering. I believe Alderman Thomas did have a query regarding that. Just want to clarify that that will happen at the end of this year.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Director of Infrastructure and Works, could you just provide that clarification, please?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Yes, there was a slight error in the date. I think we had 2021 in recommendation 3, and that should read 2020.
Thank you. So I will note that. Alderman Richardson and Alderman Fraser, are you happy for the recommendation to reflect that change and that correction to that typographical error?
Yes, happy.
Yeah,
Alderman
fine
Fraser,
with me.
thank you. Wonderful. Anything further you'd like to add when you're moving the motion, Alderman Richardson?
No, nothing at this stage.
Thank you. I will go around the table and ask Alderman if they'd like to speak to the motion. Alderman Bull.
No, I'm happy with everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Alderman Ryan.
No, nothing from me.
Thank you. Alderman Dunsby.
Yes, a question through to the Director, if I may.
Certainly, Alderman Dunsby.
Just whether he has any information or could enlighten us around the state government proposal for a waste levy and where that might be sitting on a timeline.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Director of Infrastructure Works, Ted.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor. We actually haven't heard a lot back from the state government. They're fairly busy with COVID at the moment, but I'd only just had a discussion with the General Manager the other day that we're going to actually draft a letter to the state government asking them where their response to, I guess, the concerns that we raised and the feedback we gave in regard to the draft waste strategy, including the levy. And so we'll be doing that over the next few weeks in order to try and get a response from them. And we'll, based on that question, I'll also ask them further about timelines.
Thank you. Would that be your expectation or guesstimate that it may not occur in the coming financial year? Or it might be something else we might consider after the budget has been adopted?
Through you, Mayor, I wouldn't speculate on what's happening with the levy. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Nothing further.
Nothing further. Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman King.
No, it's all good. Thanks, Mayor. Just sorry.
Thank you, Alderman King. Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support the increases as Alderman Richardson has said. Whilst we are approving increases improving increases in waste management fees and charges for 2021, that these increases won't effectively be passed on to our ratepayers this year. Rather, they will be rebated through the COVID-19 relief rebate. But it is important, for keeping with our long-term financial management plan, that we do note these, that we do make these increases, and that in recognition of the rising costs of waste disposal, and to demonstrate gradual increases across financial years rather than hitting our community with a greater increase next year. So happy to support the increase in general waste fees by 2.5%, increase in recycling fees by 10%, which sounds a lot, but the fact is that there's been a 50% increase in the tonnage rate at the Cleanaway Derwent Park facility after Cleanaway took over from SKM, so the costs of recycling are increasing. And also really important to note in this report that the cost of FOGO for the financial year will be $75. Set at $75. There was a lot of conjecture and discussion and noise made by certain groups in our community about FOGO and about what the fee would be after the initial $35 fee for a full year of service. So $75, I think, it's great that we've landed on $75. At one point there was talk of around $100. So $75 is a good outcome, I think, for our community, and I really hope our ratepayers are seeing the benefits of and enjoying the FOGO service. I know we are in our household. The landfill disposal charges will also increase by 2.5%, and it's my understanding, and when I ask a question of the director in a moment, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that this fee will apply in the 2021 financial year. So unlike the waste management fees that are levied with charged on your rates notice, which will be provided a rebate for, cost to dispose at the landfill will in fact increase by 2.5%. We simply can't put a hold on all service increases or we'll go broke as a council. So similarly, similar to Alderman Richardson, pleased to see the free waste weekend is recommended to continue, noting that in 2019 around 1,500 people accessed the free waste weekend and disposed of around 400 tonnes of waste. So I'd like to also note that whilst we call it a free waste weekend, nothing's for free, and it does cost this council and therefore our ratepayers to dispose of that waste that is deposited there. So my question to the director is, and I know we've been provided this information before, but it's useful to note again, I think, in this context, what was the cost of that free waste weekends in 2019, and do we expect it to be around the same? I know it's difficult to predict how many tonnes will be disposed of, but do we expect it? Is that what we're forecast in our budget?
Director of Structure and Works, Ted.
Thank you for the question. Through you, Mayor. The cost to run the free weekend last year was around $70,000. We did have a couple of attempts at doing it, so we're aiming to program it for a better time of year. So we're hoping that we bring it in at a similar time without the disruption that we had last year. We did look at some other alternatives. I was just going to point out that the cost of a voucher system could be around $300,000. So the key reason why we're continuing with the free waste weekend is around cost and significant reduction in what it would otherwise cost.
Thank you, Director. Anything further, Deputy Mayor?
Nothing further. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Alderman Fraser.
No, I'm happy to support this. I think the fee increases are modest. FOGO obviously is rising substantially from last year because you're getting a full year's service. All I can say is that for our household, it's saved hundreds of dollars in tip fees having a green waste bin. I suspect that's the case for a lot of other people in the municipality. Clearly, things will have to come to a head at some point with cost of waste management and disposal rising greater than 2.5%. Not something to be talked about today necessarily, but that can't continue forever. Something will have to give at some point, somehow. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Alderman Carlton.
Nothing further from me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Alderman Sims.
Not a huge great deal, just a massive thank you to our team, leadership and officers for getting such a great outcome with balancing the rates with all of this. I know that would have been a very difficult job, and I know we're being commended around the state by financial experts for the way this has been handled. So I'm very, very proud to be a part of that team and to see such an outcome. And also, we talk a lot about costs, and I know that's something that worries us a lot, but the environmental success as well is just amazing. I'm hearing a lot of those comments, so well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. I'll go back to the mover, Alderman Richardson, to close debate.
No, I don't think I've got anything else to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. I will put the motion then. Again, if Alderman can indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
The motion is carried unanimously. We move on to item 13, investigation into the disposal long-term lease of council land at 16 and 18 Grove Road, Glenorchy, which is KG5 football soccer ground. Do I have someone to move the recommendation, please?
May I ask a question Sorry.
Sorry.
Move Deputy Mayor. Alderman King, was it, who?
Yeah, I was just going to ask a question before we move the motion. That was all just with the terminology, but that's fine. We'll go now. Yep, that's right.
That's all right.
I'll second it. Yep.
Seconded by Alderman King. Thank you, Alderman King. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm satisfied with this recommendation that we commence the investigation into the disposal of this land by way of long-term lease. The land is currently occupied, as we've spoken about earlier tonight, by Football Tasmania, with including the building and soccer playing space and the change room facilities. The Local Government Act requires that we undertake a Section 178 process to dispose of public land for leases greater than 5 years. So that's why this report is before us tonight. And as we know, we go above and beyond the Section 178 process in our investigation into the disposal of council-owned land with a community engagement process prior to the commencement of the official public notification period. So by endorsing this recommendation, we will undertake that community engagement and we will, including through advertising and signage and consultation with key stakeholders, and we will invite submissions. And following this initial investigation, a report will come back to council recommending whether or not we commence the official Section 178 process, is my understanding. So I'm more than happy to support the commencement of this process.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thomas. I'll go on the table. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just in support that it is for disposal by way of a long-term lease, and also directing the General Manager, as the Deputy Mayor said. So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Alderman Ryan.
No, nothing from me.
Thank you. Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. I think it seems to be a fairly streamlined process, and I'm happy with what's outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman King.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm in support of the motion as such. I just worry about, I know we have to use it, the term disposal, long-term lease in brackets. I don't want there to be any confusion of who owns the property with the word disposal there, but we have to use that term, I suppose.
Yes, Alderman King, that's a term that's used in the legislation, so I
know.
Confusion when we get to the legislative statutory process. But you're quite right, Alderman King, that disposal refers to leasing as well as selling, donating, or otherwise giving away land. So you're quite right that it can be a bit confusing, but we try to use the same terminology when we get to the official statutory process of consultation.
That's right. It's just we've been there and done that before with confusion on who owns what. So, yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Completely understand, Alderman King. Alderman Richardson.
No, I'm happy to support this. All opportunities to maximise funding and brokering solid partnerships to achieve a high level facility needs to be considered, and I look forward to seeing this development go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Alderman Fraser.
No, happy to support it.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Alderman Carlton.
Happy to support.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Sims.
No, nothing further, thanks.
Thank you. I'll go back to the mover then, Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Nothing further to add. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll put the motion. All those please say for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Sorry, Alderman King for. Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Thank you. Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
Alderman Sims.
For.
The item is passed unanimously. Item 14, Procurement and Contracts Monthly Report. Do I have someone to move the recommendation, please?
Moved Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Seconded.
Alderman Richardson.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Alderman Dunsby, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, there's nothing I wish to add to it. I'm just happy to throw it open for discussion.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. I'll go to the table. Alderman Bull. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I was getting there out of another spring. Thank you. No, I'm happy. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Alderman Ryan.
No, I'm happy with that.
Thank you. Alderman King.
No, I'm good, thanks, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Thomas.
No, happy.
Alderman Richardson.
Nothing to, no.
Alderman Fraser.
No, good, thanks.
Alderman Carlton.
Nothing further. Thank you.
And Alderman Sims.
No, no questions, thanks.
Thank you. Go back to the mover, Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. Nothing to close the debate.
Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say for. Those against, say against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Thank you. Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
The motion is carried unanimously. Item 15 is Financial Performance Report to 30 April 2020. Do I have someone to move this recommendation, please?
Alderman Richardson.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Someone to second?
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Alderman Richardson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'm happy to receive and note the financial report. I find nothing of concern with the report, so I'm happy to take it as read.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'm happy with the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Sorry, Alderman Bull. Alderman Ryan.
No, I'm happy with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Dunsby.
Nothing to add, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman King.
No, nothing to add, thanks, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I note the financial performance report to the 30th of April with a result that we are currently, well, as at 30th of April, 2.24 million better off than our budgeted position, with revenue 0.9% above budget and expenditure 3.5% below budget. But I note that that's probably going to be the best we'll see our financial position for some time, and I expect in our report to 30th of May and then to June, we'll be starting to look very different. So we need to be prepared for that. I also note, as we've continually noted and traditionally note, our CapEx spending is at 9.6 million against a forecast of 13.36 million, and that we're not likely to spend the remaining $4.4 million in May and June, which has, you know, has been a consistent concern that this council has expressed in fully expending our CapEx budget to achieve those outcomes for our community. But you know, there are reasons for that, and there have been issues associated with COVID in continuing with some projects. So yeah, I think it's just worth noting, and that we as a council can only strive to continually improve on our CapEx, expending our CapEx budget. But yeah, happy to note the report.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I will speak to this particular item and just reiterate again, as the Deputy Mayor had said, that this is perhaps as good as we're going to see it this financial year, when we're coming to report in the future months of this financial year. The impact of COVID-19 will really hit this council very hard. We have, as previously reported, forecasting a $2 million deficit for 19-20 financial year, and that is significant and obviously concerning, but we continue to work to serve our community and to provide assistance where it's most needed, but that will have a dramatic effect on the reports moving forward for the May and June periods as well. So in particular to note the loss of Tas Water distributions, that's revenue expected to come to this council this financial year, that will not be coming to council as a result of COVID-19 measures. So we expect a turnaround, but we'll enjoy a reasonably healthy looking report whilst we have it at the moment. Move on to Alderman Fraser.
No, nothing further, thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor. I note in the report we talk about on page 56 the COVID-19 response, and we mention that of note that there's 267,000 indirect COVID-19 expenditure, and we also talk about the indirect revenue component of that. I note in the attachments we do have a section there which talks about how our revenue is being impacted by COVID-19, and that includes our user fees and charges. So we list the Derwent Entertainment Centre, landfill, and we also look at reduced fines as the prime contributors to the reason why revenue is down in those areas. We do make a note there that those variations are COVID-19, and my question is to you, Mel, or to the General Manager. I know it's a lot of work, but are we looking at actually trying to quantify the impact on revenue? Obviously, we've had to close the Derwent Entertainment Centre, and there are impacts on other areas. In future reports, trying to capture some of the impacts on revenue.
General Manager.
Sorry, Mayor, just searching for the mute button. Through you, Mayor. So, Alderman Carlton, our CFO, Manager of Finance and ICT, has set up an arrangement whereby we are tracking the costs of COVID-19 actively. So we will be keeping a close eye on this as it progresses.
Thank you, General Manager. So can I take it that will also include loss of revenue from some of our facilities such as the Derwent Entertainment Centre? So the effect of closing that, what has been the impact on what we thought we would have for revenue for the final quarter?
Yes, that's correct. So we clearly have budgeted for revenue as if we were receiving revenue from events at the Derwent Entertainment Centre, and clearly with effectively the closure of the centre to the public and the collapse of forward bookings around that, clearly the revenue we'll see a difference in future reports between revenue and actual.
Thank you, and I'm sure it's just going to be one of our many areas where we rely on revenue that are going to be impacted. So it'd be helpful to see, well, I don't know if helpful, but it would be to be able to see what the impact has been on our revenue streams.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Sims, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, just in short, very quickly, I echo Alderman Carlton's queries and also understand we had been briefed on some of that, so have a bit of comprehension around that. It'd be great once we do have that data to communicate that widely to the public as best as we can, so they understand some of the predicaments we're dealing with at the moment too. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. I go back to the mover, Alderman Richardson.
Happy to go to, nothing to add, happy to go to the vote.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. I'll put the motion. All those please say for, those against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
The motion is carried unanimously. So we move on to item 16, which is notice of motion, questions on notice without notice. Alderman Dunsby had a question without notice, which was from last council meeting. It has been put on notice for this council meeting in relation to the FOGO exemption and bin order. The answer has been provided in the council agenda. I also have a motion without notice that I would like to move. So I'm going to ask the Deputy Mayor to take the chair, if I may, so I can move a motion without notice. Is that okay with you, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. So, Deputy Mayor, I'd like to move a motion without notice. Elected Members Allowance 2020-21 response to COVID-19. It's been previously circulated to Aldermen as well as just before this council meeting. I'll read it out. That due to the financial impact of COVID-19 on the Tasmanian local government, Glenorchy City Council advocates to the Tasmanian Government for a deferral of consideration of any increase in elected member allowance for the 2020-21 financial year and provides guidance for elected members on a process to not accept any personal increase in allowance should it not be directed at a statewide level. I so move the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Do I have someone to second the motion?
Alderman Bull.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And speaking to the motion, recognising that elected members' allowances are considered by an independent commission and on November each year, they would give considerations to the current economic climate and whether to provide an increase in that allowance to elected members at that particular time. I think it is unlikely that come November, with the current economic situation, that the Commission would recommend an increase in allowance to elected members. Nonetheless, I would like to be formally providing the Council with the opportunity for information on how they may wish to decline the elected allowance increase if it so occurs, and to give them the option to do that with the full information available to them at the time. I do note that we are asking our Council staff to also forego any increase in their salary, and I think this would be a gesture of goodwill in support of our Council staff who do a terrific job providing essential services to our community. If Aldermen are likewise provided with information on how they may elect to refuse or decline any allowance should the Commission grant one in November. Again, I'm at the point, it's completely voluntary, and this motion really is to provide elected members with information only on the process.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll go around the table and see if Alderman would like to speak to the motion. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'm in favour of what the Mayor has said, so I'll just go with the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Alderman Ryan.
No, I just want to say that I'm happy to show solidarity with the Council, so I support the motion.
Thank you, Alderman Ryan. Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. I've got nothing to add to the debate.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman King.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. No, I support the motion as such. I do note that it's a voluntary process, and I hope in supporting the motion that doesn't put pressure on anyone who feels uncomfortable with it, but I'm supportive in principle. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman King. Alderman Richardson.
No, I support the motion, which is per proposal, so nothing else to add.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Alderman Fraser.
Yeah, and I'm happy to support this. You know, it's obviously a symbolic gesture and won't make any material financial difference, but I think as a matter of principle, elected leaders shouldn't ask people to do something they're not willing to do themselves.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Alderman Carlton.
Thank you. Happy to support the motion.
And Alderman Sims.
Yes, I'd just like to speak to the motion. I agree with Alderman Fraser's comments. I think it's really important you practice what you preach and lead by example. I also feel it's highly unlikely that it would have been increased by the Commission, and most aldermen, from what I can see, feel the same from past discussions. I do feel, however, it can be viewed as grandstanding a little bit on a political level, and it probably isn't necessary that it was a motion, but having considered the rationale and the premise and the need to communicate publicly that we're with them in solidarity with the staff, I understand that reasoning, so I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sims, and I'll also speak to the motion and just say I echo my fellow Alderman's comments and agree that it's important that we make a commitment to supporting, to practicing what we preach, I guess. So thank you, Mayor. I will now go to the vote. So unless you wish to add anything further, Mayor?
No, thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Great. I will now go to the vote. Alderman Bull.
4.
Alderman Ryan.
4.
Alderman Dunsby.
4.
Alderman King.
I would like to play golf with Alderman Bull sometime. 4.
Myself, Deputy Mayor, is 4. Mayor.
4.
Alderman Richardson.
4.
Alderman Fraser.
4.
Alderman Carlton.
4.
And Alderman Sims.
4.
Thank you. That motion is carried unanimously. I will now hand the chair back to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I ask if there are any other further notice of motion, questions or notice without notice.
Mayor, I just have a question without notice, if I may, please, as Deputy Mayor. I note we have now we're live streaming to Facebook. I wondered, and I know typically we record how many public are in attendance at our council meetings in the minutes. Can we record in our minutes how many people are watching in?
Very good question, Deputy Mayor. I know it does drop in and out, depending on how exciting our agenda item is, I suspect. But at the moment we have 30 IMA buyers watching. Maybe, would you like it recorded at the start, middle, or because it varies consistently, so it goes up and down. I'm not sure if we can actually put a figure on that. Maybe the maximum that people.
Yeah,
we could
the maximum.
look at that. If that would be okay with you.
Thank you. If we could investigate how a good, just it'd be good, I think, to note how many people took up the option to watch in.
Absolutely. We'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
Any further notice of motion, questions or notice without notice from Alderman in open council? If there are none, then I can have an Alderman please move that we go to closed council.
Alderman Bull.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Someone to second, please.
Alderman King.
Thank you, Alderman King. I'll put the motion. Alderman Bull.
4.
Alderman Ryan.
4.
Alderman Dunsby.
4.
Alderman King.
4.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
4.
Mayor Johnston is 4. Alderman Ryan. Richardson, sorry.
4.
Alderman Fraser.
4.
Alderman Carlton.
4.
And Alderman Sims.
4.
That motion's carried unanimously. Thank you very much to members of the public for tuning into our Facebook live stream of our council meeting on the 25th of May 2020. We do hope that you will join us again, maybe even virtually still, for our June meeting. We look forward to seeing you there.